There is a role in our culture that is held up as sacred: the mother, the caretaker. It is a role defined by unconditional love, endless patience, and boundless self-sacrifice. We see it in paintings, in movies, in the stories we tell ourselves. The serene, smiling mother, forever fulfilled by the act of giving. This is the persona of motherhood, and it is a beautiful, powerful, and profoundly incomplete picture. Because for every mother, for every caretaker, there is another world that exists in the shadows. A world of feelings you are not allowed to have. A world of thoughts you are not allowed to think. The flash of rage you feel when your child spills juice on the clean floor for the 5th time. The suffocating feeling of being touched out, of wanting nothing more than for everyone to just leave you alone. The deep, aching resentment when you realize your life is no longer your own. The secret, shameful fantasy of just walking away. These are not the feelings of a bad mother or a bad person. These are the feelings of a human mother, a human caretaker. They are the inevitable shadow that is cast by the impossibly bright light of the maternal archetype. And because no one talks about this shadow, millions of women are suffering in silent shame, believing they are the only ones who feel this way, believing they are failing at the one job that is supposed to come naturally. Today, we are going to break that silence. We are going to bring a candle into that dark, secret room. This is not a conversation of judgment. It is a conversation of profound compassion and radical honesty. It is time to talk about the shadow side of giving. To understand the shadow of motherhood, we must first understand the myth that creates it. In our collective unconscious, there exists a powerful godlike figure, the archetype of the Great Mother. She is Earth itself. She is the source of all life. She is pure, unconditional love. Her nourishment is endless. Her patience is infinite. Her giving is boundless. She is a symbol of absolute self-sacrifice, finding her entire fulfillment in the act of nurturing her children. This is a beautiful and necessary archetype. It lives in the soul of humanity. The problem arises when our culture takes this divine archetypal image and projects it as a literal expectation onto everyday human women. The myth of the perfect mother is born, and it is a cruel and impossible standard. This myth tells a woman that from the moment she becomes a mother, or a primary caretaker, her own needs, her own desires, her own identity as a separate individual should cease to exist. She is expected to become a vessel, a selfless, serene, and ever-smiling source of comfort and care. She should feel nothing but overwhelming love and joy for her children 24 hours a day. She should never feel tired or bored or resentful or touched out. And above all, she must never, ever feel anger towards her own child. To feel these things is to be a bad mother. It is to fail at the most fundamental female role. This is a devastating setup, because it forces a woman to deny her own humanity. A human woman is not a divine archetype. She is a complex being with a full spectrum of needs and emotions. She needs rest. She needs solitude. She needs intellectual stimulation. She needs a sense of her own identity outside of her role as a mother. And yes, she feels anger. She feels frustration. She feels resentment. Because caretaking, while beautiful, is also one of the most depleting, demanding, and relentless jobs in the world. So what happens when the reality of a woman's human experience collides with the impossible ideal of the myth? She begins to split herself in two. On the surface, she performs the persona of the perfect mother. She posts smiling photos on social media. She tells her friends how wonderful and fulfilling it all is. She maintains an outward appearance of calm competence. But underneath, in the secret cellar of her psyche, a shadow begins to form. A shadow made up of every unacceptable feeling she has been forced to disown. Let's name the demons that live in this particular shadow. The first and most common is resentment. This is the cold, simmering rage that builds from 1,000 tiny self-sacrifices. It is the resentment she feels when she makes, for the 500th time, a meal that she doesn't want to eat but that her children will. It is the resentment she feels when her partner comes home from a full day of adult conversation and gets to switch off, while her work never ever ends. It is the resentment she feels when she has to cancel her own plans yet again because a child is sick. Each of these moments, she tells herself she should feel nothing but loving sacrifice. But her soul knows the truth. A boundary has been crossed. A need has been ignored. And the suppressed anger from these moments curdles into a thick, pervasive resentment that can begin to poison the very love it is meant to support. The second demon is the profound feeling of being touched out and overstimulated. A mother's body is often not her own. It is a jungle gym, a tissue, a source of endless comfort and nourishment. Her auditory space is filled with constant noise, questions, and demands. Her nervous system is in a state of perpetual hypervigilance, always on alert for the next potential danger or need. Her authentic human self, especially if she is an introvert, desperately craves space, silence, and the sovereignty of her own physical being. But the myth says a good mother should always be available, always ready for a hug, always responsive. To want to be left alone is seen as selfish and rejecting. So she suppresses this deep biological need for space, and it festers in the shadow as a feeling of being suffocated, of wanting to crawl out of her own skin. This is often the source of the sudden, shocking snap moments where a mother might yell, "Just leave me alone," and then be flooded with immense guilt. It was not a rejection of her child. It was the desperate cry of a nervous system that had been pushed far beyond its capacity. Pause here for a moment of radical honesty. If you were a mother or a caretaker, have you felt these things? The quiet resentment, the desperate need not to be touched? Can you allow yourself, just for a moment, to acknowledge the truth of these feelings without the immediate wave of shame and judgment? This is not a confession of your failure. It is an acknowledgement of your humanity. The myth of the perfect mother creates a profound loneliness. Because every woman believes she is the only one who feels these terrible things, she feels isolated in her shame. She cannot speak her truth to other mothers for fear of being judged. She cannot speak it to her partner for fear of sounding ungrateful. She can barely admit it to herself. So the shadow grows larger and darker in the isolation of its silence. It becomes a source of deep anxiety and depression. The work of healing begins with breaking this silence. It begins with the courageous act of speaking the unspoken truth, first to ourselves, and then perhaps to a trusted other. It begins with the understanding that these shadow feelings do not make you a bad mother. They make you a human one. And that is a truth that can set you free. We have named the first two demons that live in the caretaker's shadow, the slow poison of resentment and the suffocating feeling of being touched out. But the shadow of motherhood is a complex territory with deeper, darker corners. Let's bring our candle into two more of these hidden rooms. Let's talk about the feelings that are often the most shameful, the ones we dare not even whisper to ourselves. The third demon, the grief for a lost self. Before you were mom or a wife or a caretaker, who were you? What did you love to do? What were your dreams? What did your quiet Saturday mornings look like? The transition into motherhood is one of the most profound identity shifts a person can experience. It is a death and a rebirth. You die to your old self, the maiden, the independent woman, and you are reborn as the mother. This is a beautiful and sacred process, but our culture only allows us to celebrate the rebirth. It does not give us space to grieve the death. To grieve the loss of your old self is seen as selfish, ungrateful. You have this beautiful child. What could you possibly have to complain about? So the grief is suppressed. It is pushed into the shadow, and there it festers. It is the secret sadness you feel when you see a younger, child-free woman traveling the world on Instagram. It is the pang of loss you feel when you look at your old paintbrushes, now gathering dust in a corner. It is the quiet ache for the person you used to be, for the freedom you once took for granted. Let's imagine a woman, Maria, 35. She was a successful graphic designer with a vibrant social life before she had her first child. She loves her son more than anything in the world. She would do anything for him. But some days, she finds herself scrolling through old photos on her phone. Photos of herself at art gallery openings, laughing with friends, on spontaneous weekend trips. And she feels a wave of such intense, heartbreaking grief that it takes her breath away. She immediately feels a secondary wave of immense guilt. How can I feel this way? I chose this. I love my son. I must be a terrible mother. Her grief is not a sign that she doesn't love her child. Her grief is a sign that she has not been allowed to honor the magnitude of her sacrifice. She has not been given permission to feel both the overwhelming love for her new life and the profound sadness for the life she has lost. The two feelings can and must coexist. The shadow of grief manifests as a kind of low-grade depression, a feeling of being disconnected from your own life, a sense that you are playing a role but have forgotten who the actor is. You may look in the mirror and barely recognize the person staring back at you. This is not postpartum depression in the clinical sense, though it can be related. This is an existential grief. The healing is not to pretend the loss didn't happen. The healing is to create a space to honor it, to take out your journal and write a letter to the woman you were before you became a mother, to thank her, to acknowledge her dreams, to grieve her passing, to light a candle for her. By honoring the death, you can more fully embrace the rebirth. You begin to integrate the maiden and the mother within you, rather than forcing them to be at war. Pause and ask yourself, what part of my pre-motherhood or pre-caretaker self do I miss the most? What is a small way I can honor or reconnect with that part of myself this week? The fourth and most taboo demon, anger at your own children. This is it. This is the thought that, for many mothers, feels truly unforgivable. The flash of pure, undiluted rage you feel towards the small, helpless human being you love more than life itself. It happens in a moment of utter depletion. The baby has been crying for 3 hours straight. You haven't slept. You haven't showered. Or your toddler has just thrown their entire plate of food on the floor for the third time right after you spent an hour cooking it. And in that moment, a feeling rises up in you that is so hot, so intense, so monstrous that it terrifies you. You might scream, you might slam a door, you might have a fleeting, horrifying thought that you immediately push away with all your might. The shame that follows is absolute.
It is a soul-crushing shame that convinces you that you are fundamentally broken, dangerous, and unfit to be a mother. This is the deepest, darkest secret of the maternal shadow, and it is also one of the most universal. But because no one speaks of it, every woman believes she is the only monster. Let's be radically clear here. We are not talking about acting on this anger in a way that harms a child. That is never okay. We are talking about the feeling itself. The feeling of anger towards your child is not a sign that you are a bad mother. It is a sign that you are a human being who has been pushed past your limits. Your anger is not actually at your child. Your child in that moment is simply the focal point for a rage that has much deeper roots. It is the rage at your own exhaustion. It is the rage at your lack of support. It is the rage at the loss of your own identity. It is the rage at the impossible, inhuman standards of the perfect mother myth. The child, with their relentless, legitimate needs, simply becomes the lightning rod for a storm that has been brewing for a long time. The shame we feel about this anger is what makes it so dangerous. Because we are so terrified of it, we suppress it until it builds to an explosive level. The path to healing is counterintuitive. It is not to suppress the anger more. It is to acknowledge it sooner, in its smaller, more manageable forms. It is to notice the first flicker of irritation and say to yourself, I am feeling frustrated right now. I'm at a 2 out of 10. I need to take a break. It is about giving yourself a time out. Putting the baby safely in their crib and walking into another room for 5 minutes to breathe. Telling your toddler, Mommy is feeling very angry right now, so I am going to take a moment to calm down. You are modeling healthy emotional regulation. You are teaching them, and yourself, that anger is a normal human emotion, not a monstrous force to be feared. By giving yourself permission to feel your anger, you actually become a safer parent. You are no longer a walking pressure cooker liable to explode over a small trigger. You are a conscious caretaker of your own emotional state. You are honoring your own humanity. And in doing so, you are giving your children the greatest gift of all, a mother who is not a perfect, mythical goddess, but a whole, authentic, and self-aware human being.
We have dared to name the unnameable. The resentment, the suffocation, the grief and the rage that live in the shadow of the caretaker. To see these parts of yourself clearly can be a painful and disorienting experience. The immediate impulse might be to feel more shame, more guilt, to believe even more strongly that you are a bad mother or a bad person. But the purpose of this work is the exact opposite. It is to move from shame to compassion. It is to understand that these shadow feelings are not a sign of your personal failure. They are a sign of your humanity, crying out under the weight of an inhuman expectation. The healing path is not about trying harder to become the perfect mother. That is the path that led you to this exhaustion in the first place. The healing path is about becoming a good enough mother, a term coined by the brilliant psychoanalyst Donald Winnicott. The good enough mother is not perfect. She is human. She is loving, and she gets angry. She is devoted, and she needs time for herself. She is joyful, and she grieves the life she left behind. She is attuned to her children, and she sets firm boundaries. She does not try to be a goddess. She is simply a whole, real, and present human being. And Winnicott argued that this is, in fact, the greatest gift you can give a child. A child does not need a perfect, selfless mother robot. A child needs a real human mother who models for them what it means to be a real human being, flaws, feelings, and all. By embracing your own wholeness, you give your children permission to embrace theirs. So, how do we begin to walk this path of the good enough mother? How do we integrate this powerful maternal shadow? It is not about abandoning your children or your responsibilities. It is about infusing your current life with small, consistent acts of self-compassion and self-honoring. It is about learning to mother yourself with the same fierce devotion you give to others. Practice number 1. Schedule your own timeouts. You give your children timeouts when they are overwhelmed. You must learn to do the same for yourself. This is not a luxury. It is a neurological necessity. It is the practice of proactively discharging stress from your nervous system before it reaches the point of explosion. A timeout does not have to be a spa day or a weekend away. It can be 5 minutes. 5 minutes where you lock the bathroom door, sit on the floor, and practice your somatic sighing. 5 minutes where you leave the children safely with your partner and walk around the block, feeling the air on your skin. 5 minutes where you put on headphones and listen to one song that makes you feel like you, not like mom. You must schedule these moments into your day with the same non-negotiable importance as a doctor's appointment. You are tending to the health of your nervous system, which is the foundation of your ability to be a present and patient caretaker. Ask yourself, where can I carve out just 10 minutes of unapologetic solitude for myself today? Practice number 2. Find your council of mothers. The shame of the maternal shadow thrives in isolation. Its power is dismantled by honest, vulnerable connection with others who understand. You must find your people. This is not the mommy group where everyone pretends their life is perfect. This is the council of mothers where you can speak the truth. The friend you can text and say, I am losing my mind today. I love my kids, but I feel so much rage. And she texts back, me too. You are not alone. You are a good mom having a hard day. These moments of shared, honest reflection are life-saving. They are the antidote to the poison of shame. They normalize the full, complex, human experience of motherhood. You realize you are not the only monster in the world. There are no monsters. There are only human beings doing the hardest job in the world. If you do not have these people in your life, seek them out. In online communities, in therapy groups. You must break the silence. Your sanity depends on it. Practice number 3. Reclaim a piece of your lost self. Your grief for your pre-motherhood identity is real and valid. To heal it, you must honor it. You must find a way to bring a small piece of that lost woman back into your current life. It is an act of integration. What did she love to do? Did she love to read novels, go to museums, dance, hike? You may not be able to do these things with the same frequency you once did, but can you do them at all? Can you commit to reading for 15 minutes every night after the kids are asleep? Can you hire a babysitter for 2 hours on a Saturday morning once a month to go to a museum by yourself? Can you put on music and dance in the kitchen while you cook dinner? These are not selfish indulgences. They are acts of soul retrieval. You are telling the forgotten parts of yourself, I haven't forgotten you. You still are a part of me. You still matter. When you nurture your own soul, you bring a more vibrant, alive, and fulfilled self to your role as a mother. You are filling your own cup,
so you have something real to give. This is the path. It is not a path to perfection. It is a path to wholeness. It is the messy, beautiful, and deeply human work of accepting all parts of yourself, the light and the shadow, the serene, loving mother and the tired, angry, grieving woman. They are not enemies. They are both you. And by holding them both with compassion, you become the good enough, real, and deeply loving mother your children and you truly need.
We have walked together today into one of the most sacred and most secretly shamed territories of the human experience. We have dared to name the shadow of the mother, the shadow of the caretaker. We have acknowledged the resentment that comes from endless giving, the suffocation of being constantly needed, the grief for a life that was, and the rage that rises when our own humanity is pushed past its limits. To bring these things into the light is a profoundly courageous act. For too long, women have been forced to carry the burden of these feelings in silent, isolated shame, believing they were failing at the one role they're supposed to embody perfectly. Today, we dismantle that myth. The goal is not to be a perfect, mythical goddess mother. The goal is to be a whole, real, good enough human mother, one who honors her love for her children and honors her own needs as a separate, sovereign being. One who can feel both overwhelming joy and profound frustration, sometimes in the very same hour. This is not a contradiction. This is the paradox of being alive. The greatest gift you can give to those you care for is not your perfection. It is your authenticity. It is the gift of modeling what it means to be a real person who respects their own boundaries, honors their own feelings, and tends to their own soul. You teach your children how to treat themselves by the way you treat yourself. When you give yourself permission to rest, you teach them that rest is valuable. When you set a healthy boundary, you teach them how to protect their own energy. When you acknowledge your anger in a clean, responsible way, you teach them that all of their feelings are valid. Your own healing is a legacy you pass on. It is the greatest act of love. So, be gentle with yourself on this path. Practice your timeouts. Find your council of mothers. Reclaim a small piece of your lost self. Meet your own unacceptable feelings, not with judgment, but with a deep, compassionate curiosity. But as we continue this journey into the shadow, we must be prepared to meet even darker, more challenging parts of ourselves. We have spoken of the acceptable shadow feelings, the anger, the resentment, the grief. But what about the parts of us that feel truly malevolent? The part that feels a secret, shameful flicker of pleasure when we hear that a rival has failed. The part that has cruel, cutting thoughts about the people we love. The part that sometimes fantasizes about destruction or chaos. This is what Jung might call the evil part of the shadow, the part we are most terrified to look at for fear it will confirm our deepest fear, that we are, at our core, a bad person. Why do we have these thoughts? Where do they come from? And how do we confront this part of ourselves without being consumed by it? Exploring this territory requires even more courage, but it is a necessary part of the journey to true wholeness. Because only by understanding our own capacity for darkness can we truly, consciously choose the light. And it is into that deeper, more challenging shadowland that we will venture next.